Aye. Any members
Aye.
opposed to opening the meeting at this time? All right, hearing none, the meeting is officially open. Thank you, James. And I would say, so the first item on our agenda is the review and posting of meeting minutes. So we have previously reviewed two meeting minutes that have been prepared by our secretary, Michael Horan, and he then, at my request, went back, and we had not had the initial meeting minutes yet presented for review. So those have all been presented for review. So I would ask at this point in time, if anybody, and I'll go around the circle, if hopefully people have had a chance to look at these minutes. I'm going to try to pull out my copy of the minutes as well. I guess I'll start with you, Laura, and then go sort of clockwise through me. Any comments on the minutes that for the July meeting? Oh, it's Laura, can you hear? I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I was having a technical problem. No comments.
All right. And so I will now go up to Aisha. Did you have any comments on the minutes for the July 31st meeting?
No comment. Thank you.
All right. And Rachel, you next. Did you have any?
Hi. My last name is misspelled. It's Z-E-R, not, it's weird.
Yes. You've told us that before.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
It happens all the time, but like you could just replace that. That's my only comment. Everything else is what we talked about.
All right. And then my only comment. So James, did you have a comment? Did I skip over you?
I read the minutes. They look like they're in very good form.
Okay. Nice job, Michael. My comment was another spelling comment. It's just, so Kathy Stanley is actually with a K. Michael on Kathy, and then Stanley, I believe, is Stanley. So it's just her name. Other than that, I thought that was the minutes were in order. I had no other proposed changes. Have I missed anybody, or did we get everybody's comments? All right. I think Michael, obviously you drafted them. So does anybody want to make a motion to adopt the minutes as amended?
Motion to approve the July 31st minutes with corrections as indicated.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Michael? Aye as well, I suppose. I think actually, we might do some roll call votes, but I think if we do that by roll call, let's just do it by roll call again. But it was unanimous, right? So I don't think we need to do a roll call if it was unanimous. James, correct me if I'm wrong. Help with the parliamentary procedure. All right, so we've now.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Yes, you addressed me. I'd like to respond. Yes, we should have a roll call vote.
Okay, all right, even though it was unanimous. All right, so let's start again. The motion is on the floor and it has been seconded, and we'll go through starting again with Laura with respect to her voting on the motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I vote aye.
And next, Aisha. Aisha, can you hear me?
I vote aye.
Oh, thank you. James?
Yes.
Rachel?
Aye.
I vote aye. And Michael?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So those minutes are adopted. And so we will get the 3 sets of adopted minutes posted on the website. I wanted to make sure we had the first one posted because it would look kind of weird if we started with the second meeting. I appreciate Michael getting to this to us in all of the minutes actually in such a timely manner. So I think we are set with minutes, and then I'm sure next week we can catch up on further minutes that we need to do. All right. The next issue, which I wanted to speak to for a moment, and I have a document here I want to look at. It's kind of one of our next steps in our planning stages. Was, clearly we need to engage with the appropriate town officials, but also with the appropriate town departments that might have, certainly play a role in these issues, whether it's the emissions issues, reducing emissions issues, or it's the climate resiliency issue. And I actually, without having a discussion with James ahead of time, I thought I was just going to go over the list and perhaps James could, and other people who are familiar with the committees could give a sense of, there's two things. We want to engage with everybody, so absolutely all across the board, and get their input. But there's also committees that really have active. So Janet has joined. It sounds like, just so the minutes reflect that. I believe Janet has joined the committee. Well, the meeting. Welcome, Janet. We had just approved the minutes, and we're now on item 2.
Sorry, I've never done this before. I've only done regular Zoom, so
That's okay. And what I announced at the beginning of the meeting is
Yeah.
for discussing topics, we're just going to you would have to be recognized by the chair to speak. However, with each agenda
Okay.
item, my intention is to go one by one through everybody on the committee who's right here before me, and
Yeah.
definitely give them a chance to comment. And if we have to do a second circle as the discussion develops, we will do that too. But
Okay.
because it's just a little more harder to keep it orderly. So this is what we will try. And so, as I said, I came up with a list of all the committees and commissions in town, just to get a sense of, and would welcome people's comments on, some of them are obvious and some they're not. And some of them, I would say that we could perhaps, some of us, be better informed on exactly what the scope is of what that committee does. And in that, I might look to some of the people on the committee here who are more experienced or who might have interacted with these. So the first one on the list is the Board of Health. So I think we had already referenced that. And I think certainly public health is going to be an issue within our scope of the planning. So the Board of Health is somebody that the individual or individuals who want to concentrate in that area would interact with them. Cedar Hill Golf Course, obviously it is a building, it is a facility. And I guess the good news about that is I know that our town energy manager has worked diligently to improve some of the heating and cooling issues in that building. And I think my understanding is it's just been a very significant maintenance turnaround, and it's going to be a cost savings, as will hopefully many things we do. The Community Preservation Committee, which I would say that I only know what they do of when they bring something to town meeting. I don't know. I would think again that, and Michael, looks like you have a comment about, no, okay. Laura, do you have a comment about Community Preservation Committee? Anybody else
Yeah.
familiar with it? All right.
I
And,
don't know anything about it. Yeah.
and so the next one is Conservation Commission. And actually, I would put Michael on a spot for a moment here. If you could tell us, because not everybody's a town meeting member, what does Conservation Commission do, and how do you see that maybe interacting with the work of our planning document?
I'd absolutely invite Jim Conlon's suggestions along here as well, of course. But basically, anything having to do with any type of development around wetlands is number one priority, and managing any of the lands that are under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission. In terms of what we do, I think a number of the items on your outline that come under nature-based solutions would certainly play a part. You start talking about things like bioswales, et cetera, gardens, community gardens, et cetera. For example, there is talk about, in fact, a lot of this connects between CPC, Conservation Commission, and our own, when they start talking about, for example, some of the land they're talking about behind the barn that Dwight wants to rehab, turning that into possibly, local agricultural facility, et cetera. So a lot of what we do with our conservation lands and how we do it would certainly be a part of, would be of concern to this community.
All right. Thank you. That's helpful. James, anything to add to that?
Well, yes, Madam Chair, I would say I agree with Michael as far as the open space recreation aspect of the Conservation Commission is concerned. That's a valid feature of the mission of the commission, to maintain our open space, our trails. These are means of offering recreational resources to folks to reduce the carbon footprint, to enjoy nature without creating any issues with regard to emissions besides driving to the conservation land. But just to enjoy the conservation land, appreciate nature, appreciate open space and preservation of open space, and the acquisition and management of such reduces our carbon footprint. And it's something that we need to try to be on board with the commission with, as far as acquisition of open space is concerned and green space in the community, which is better for the atmosphere, which is one feature of the management responsibilities of the Conservation Commission. In addition to that, site development is very important. And as far as community, the Climate Action Plan Committee is concerned, with respect to our Climate Action Plan, we're going to need to look at and make recommendations regarding site development and make some statements and recommendations for policy decisions concerning stormwater design, because stormwater is a very important feature of development projects, which need to be designed by professional registered engineers to ensure that there is no discharge that the peak amount of discharge runoff does not exceed the pre-development condition of the developed lot. And that concerns developed lots under our authority within 100 feet of wetland resource areas. Those are the only projects we have the authority over, and we regulate them. To that note, stormwater development, stormwater management development is very important for development projects. That should be a feature of our investigations or our specializations that we wish to decide upon, each and every one of us as interests to investigate for our role on the committee. There are important issues with respect to stormwater management, with stormwater management design, as far as infiltration of stormwater on site. That's a very important feature of stormwater design. Recharge of water to the groundwater table. That the groundwater resources are aspects that we need to protect, preserve with respect to our goals as far as the committee is concerned. I have that to offer so far, but the Conservation Commission is also involved with enforcement with respect to violations of wetlands regulations, violations that include filling wetlands or developing in proximity to wetlands without benefit of permit, that results in soil destabilization and pollution of the wetlands by means of destabilized soil or pollution to speak of. The reason soil is so important with respect to wetlands protection is that soil actually conveys nutrients to wetlands that create problems such as eutrophication, which lower dissolved oxygen levels and create plant overgrowth and algal blooms, fish kills, reduce water quality for recreational purposes, enhance mosquito breeding habitat. So sediment is important to be managed with respect to construction projects. That's one of our jobs. And sediment that is unchecked also fills, it discharges and flows down gradient into flood storage areas where it might not seem like much. It might only seem de minimis as we understand it, but on a large scale, flood hazard storage area is diminished with respect to irresponsible construction practices. And across the board, it creates a problem on the long run, especially to people at the lower reaches of the watershed. If you look at the Mississippi Delta, where all the problems that they have, or lower reaches of watersheds, even as far in areas of New England, the flood plain is always changing, and preservation of the floodplain is an important aspect. That is a feature of the town's municipal vulnerability program, which we received a grant to try to find out where the problem areas are, where there's flooding in town, so we can manage these areas, work around them, And
Right.
if necessary, provide compensatory storage for some of these areas.
Yeah, I just want to move on there so we can, but obviously, between you and Michael, great expertise on the broad scope of what the Conservation Commission does. And I would say definitely links up very much with what we would want to do. Okay, I'm going to just finish going through the rest. So Council on Aging, I think again, that's an interest group who should be very interested in this issue. And it strikes me as much as we focus on the challenges and for the next generation, quite frankly, with the heat waves and some of the other disastrous things, older people are certainly very, very much at risk, and they should take a great interest in trying to fight climate change. Disabilities Commission, which I'm also familiar with, again, we certainly would want to bear those issues and those challenges in mind. There is a downtown redevelopment task force listed, and I don't know if that's a currently active plan, but again, redevelopment would feed into, are we building green buildings? Are we actually bearing in mind a more energy efficient building code, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, as you're redeveloping, you have to bear in mind the extreme weather events and how those buildings are going to endure them. So there's an Energy and Sustainability Committee. We all know about that. I'm on that committee. We'll certainly work closely with them, and they support our work 100%. FinCom, obviously, we may be going to FinCom to request some funds, so we certainly will be interacting with them. Glen Echo Space and Recreation Committee, again, I would say that's maybe not active since Glen Echo was completely open, or maybe it still is active. And I have the pleasure of saying I've been there, and it's actually terrific place to go. All right, the Housing Authority, and I guess maybe is the Housing Authority just regulating or supervising with respect to whatever public housing the town has? Because you have the Housing Authority and then you have the Redevelopment Authority, and I'm presuming those are very, very different committees that do not overlap. And I don't know if the Housing Authority, again, to the extent that there's issues with respect to maintenance of housing, making housing more energy efficient, that might have some want to connect with them. There's the Open Space Committee, and I have been in contact with actually John Linehan. And we'll get to that when we talk about grants later, but clearly the Open Space Committee, which issued a report in 2018, which we're all reading, I'm sure. I'm still trying to finish reading that, but I don't know if that's a disbanded committee. They're certainly still listed as being there. We have the Planning Board. So our mission is all about planning. So certainly interacting with the Planning Board and getting to know the officials on the Planning Board is important. Redevelopment Authority, I guess I'm presuming that's more like, developing from the ground up, whether it's housing or commercial development. Again, the type of structures we build are really have to, feed into the plan. Equal Opportunity Committee, and I didn't know that it was called that. And certainly, our mission is to try to be, bear in mind those issues as we carry out our work. School Committee, I think, quite frankly, the schools could play a huge role in planning for the town. There is SMAC, and SMAC's on board, so welcome, SMAC. Glad to know that you're on board, and I think they certainly will be interested in hearing, not just filming our meetings, but hearing more from us. The Youth Commission, I think that's another great organization to reach out to as far as community engagement. And then there's the Zoning Board of Appeals. My understanding is that's typically somebody wants a special permit for something. It might be something very minor that's aesthetic, that doesn't really impact us or our issues, or it might be something that says, oh, well, usually the rule is supposed to be this, but I want a special permit. So I think part of it is really our outreach and introducing ourselves to the various people on these committees. And, we need to think of a strategy of how to do that effectively. So they know that we're here, and there might be certain issues as we go through our list of issues that are planning that we may want to be having substantive conversations with all those committees. So that is just a heads up for people as we, move forward and try to get some traction here. So I'm going to go around and see if anybody has any questions and comments, and I will start with Laura. I can't hear you.
Sorry. No, I wasn't starting to talk yet. I was still muted. I don't have any questions, but I think it would be great for all of us to have this list, if not already available, just to keep top of our mind. This has actually been a really great overview of all the different committees, that some of which I did not know existed. And so I think as we're thinking, moving forward with some of our outreach and some of the discussions that we're having at this point, it would be great for us to have this list and coordinate if we are reaching out to some of these different groups, just so not multiple people are reaching out and we have kind of a coordinated approach.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we're going to bring people in to have conversations, we're prepared for what those conversations are. So we're not wasting anybody's time, but also, making sure that it's, with a goal in mind.
Absolutely. And I think coordination is going to be key. So that's a good theme for what we want to be doing, whether it's internal engagement with the town or outreach to another town or a committee in another town is to be coordinated. So Janet, do you have any comments or thoughts about the various town committees I went over?
I'm on the historic commission. I didn't hear that one actually be mentioned, but
It wasn't listed. I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's with Dwight, actually. I might be saying the name incorrect, but that's how I actually found out about this committee. He was talking about it on one of his hikes. So, or actually someone there, but I think that all the committees have a relationship. I'm glad Laura mentioned that, because they all are intertwined. They all affect one another in very different ways. And some of us have probably come in contact with different circumstances that each of these committees have done over the years. But I guess the best part is I wasn't able to reach my person, but I actually went through 40 things of Gloucester. So I got some really great ideas. I know you're going to talk about that later, but I got some great ideas.
Okay.
But as far as what you just did, I'm glad you did mention that, and you went through them all and explained what they are. So
the best I could, and I'm going to send the list to everybody. That's a great idea.
yeah.
Shay, you have any questions or comments about all the different town boards and committees?
The redevelopment side, it sounds like it should be almost development, but I think the case is when you're building things, especially when you're I think we were talking about watershed areas, and I was involved in the downtown area as well, the pedestrian part of it. And I think it's important to know that when we're doing things for the town, whether it's improving or creating, how we affect others, how we affect other people in different circumstances in the town. I mean, I live in a house, but someone who lives in an apartment or lives near a certain area of town where there is water, like the Bird Street area, I'm thinking there's a lot of area, conservation land.
Right. So
really
Janet, I need to move on to Aisha now, actually. So if I
I'm
can.
sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
That's okay. The sound's not perfect. So Aisha, did you have questions or thoughts about the?
No, I guess not really.
Janet, I'm going to move on to Aisha,
fine.
our next speaker.
That's fine.
Okay? Thank you.
We're good.
Thank you, Chair. So my contribution will be, I would like to work with Laura and James, and that's because it cuts across my area of specialty, which is health, environmental, and safety. So if you have any question, especially with the SWPP, with the Stormwater Prevention and Protection Plan, that was recently part of one of the stuff that we were dealing with, especially with these floods that were coming on in Massachusetts. We know about the dams that we have. 5 of them are totally out of place. 17 of them, we have to do a revamp on it. We can totally look at those ones that concerns us with regards to Stoughton, Canton, and the neighboring cities, and then we'll work with that. And then also, Laura, if you have anything on the health side, feel free to count me in, and I'll be able to partner with you both.
Okay. All right.
Thank
So James, I think you made your comments. If that's okay, we'll go on to Rachel. Any comments about the list of boards and commissions?
I think there were 2 that you were missing. One is the Board of Library Trustees, which
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
So
Yeah.
I can be a liaison, of course, since I'm on both. On both of these. So I'm the new library director, or recent recently new library director is great. He's very interested in these kinds of issues. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with them. And the other one is there's a meeting for Stoughton's 400. There's a committee for Stoughton's 400th anniversary, I believe.
Yep.
And I didn't know if that one was listed. I agree with Laura about needing a list of all of these and also a list of all of the different town departments. I think having those in a shared document will really help us keep everything straight.
And
And
that's the 300th. And
300th.
that has come up in a few past meetings in terms of coordinating with that committee. So that's a really good flag, Rachel.
and that's it.
Oh, thank you about the library, especially. Michael, your thoughts? Anything I missed or any thoughts?
No, not really. If you do need anybody to liaison with the housing authority, feel free. I just spent 3 years on there, 4
Oh.
years, 5 years. I don't know how many years. But we would definitely want to be in touch with them because they are in a nonstop, perpetual process of rehabbing the buildings that they do have. Every time you turn around, there's something new going in or coming out. So
Okay.
we want them on the list.
All right, that's excellent. All right, so as you can see, there's a lot there, and if one could imagine in an ideal world that somebody or more from the committee would go to one of their meetings, and introduce themselves and say, here's what we're planning to do, here's the scope of what we're doing. We want to have a dialogue, but we'll see if we could work that out. But I just thought we needed to have a heads up as to the internal meetings and discussions are really like a huge part of this, in addition to the community engagement. Any other questions? I don't know how I can see people raise their hand, but any other questions before I move on to the next agenda item or thoughts? All right. So the next one I think is going back, and I know not everybody has made every meeting, to the sort of universal outline, which I had done something, and then Rachel had made some edits to it, and we had gone over that draft, I think, on August 28th. Thank you, Rachel. And I know people have expressed a couple of, feelings of their interest level. I don't know if we want to go round robin again and just have people say, I want to focus on this big issue or this medium issue or whatever it may be, or these 2 or 3 issues. I'm happy to do that again. And then I think maybe people should send me an email once they look at it and look again at Rachel's outline and say, I want to do these 2 or 3 or this big issue or whatever it may be. And then again, obviously 2 or more people can work on an issue, and also, do what you are interested in and what you have time for. Because that's all that I'm asking of people, to do what they can have time for. And it may be that you might look at an issue that has 7 different things underneath it, but at the end of the day, we're really focusing on 3 of those things because that's what we can get our arms around, at least in the next year or so, as we try to really get some traction here. So I will go around Robin again and see if people want to comment more on what they'd like to focus on, and I can start with Laura.
So I think I've already expressed a couple of things that I'm interested in. So the public health was one. I think it was called natural solutions was another, but I understand that that's something that's of interest of a number of different people. I think my main question would be, are there any big gaps? Are there big topics that no one has stepped up to? And is that maybe what we should put our focus on next, which is how do we divide and conquer some of those maybe less popular, more challenging, but probably extremely important topics. So I'll leave that up for discussion. I'm happy to volunteer for any of those, with the caveat that I'm not necessarily an expert in all of those things.
Right. And I think that's pretty much, we're not a bunch of engineers, except maybe for James. So, all right. So Janet, do you have any issues or areas that you think you'd like to focus your work on? Janet?
So it's all right. I'm unmuted.
Oh, that's
So
okay.
this is a new. I'm so used to Zoom and the other Google one. But anyway, so what I like to do, I guess I'm I've been involved with education as far as communicating with writing and I've done public speaking and PR and a lot of that type of thing. So I'm also very much in just environment in general. So I don't mind going into the schools at different ages or talking to adults and trying to break it down because a lot of times we have words here that are not really words that the average public uses. And even I had to look up a few that you guys have been using. So, but I'm so used to using the dictionary and the thesaurus. So that's just how I was raised.
Okay.
But I like to, I really want to get it out there to different ages, to different types of groups, whether not just residents, but even as in my research, I found different, committees and grants around the state that just happened to be Gloucester that I did, but they had a lot of interesting things. And I think I also wanted to forward something to you guys. So I pulled up some of their information since I wasn't able to reach someone. I got a lot of information from their site that I'd like to send as far as communicating to, whether it be things that they sent out to their community, whether it be from the mayor or from the members of their committee. And just involving, like, I think we had some people with the schools and other things, just getting it out to everybody, whether it be through the library or the media or whatever it is, just because we all listen to things in different ways. Some people are more into the written word and other people are more into, hearing it, whether it be the radio or going onto their computer, or a TV or whatever it is, they have different ways of hearing things. And
So Janet, what I'm hearing is that you really would like to take a big role in community engagement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I like to get people involved.
So that's great.
I'm a people person, so just I really, I like the challenge because there's some people that are hard to communicate with, but there are ways. There's always a tact or some way to get groups of different people. So
all right, so let me move on. So Aisha, I think you talked a moment ago about what you're interested in. Anything to add to that?
No.
So I'm moving on to Aisha now. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say Aisha. Forgive me. I'm gonna mute myself right here. Okay.
No worries, Janet. No worries, Janet. So so Aisha, I have you down for certainly public health and, working with, I think even those technical issues that James is an expert on with respect to the wetlands and the flood protection, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds great. So that's certainly, it seems like a focus on resiliency, I would say, like a focus on actually how do we make the environment more resilient for these let's not say catastrophic, but these unusual weather events and the flooding events, etc. It sounds like that's where your focus was, which is consistent with what I think you said originally, right, Aisha?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. Anything else to add before I move on to James?
No, that'll be all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And James, we know you have so much expertise. Clearly, I think with what your knowledge of the town and obviously your knowledge of engineering issues, why don't you tell me where you think your expertise is best used on a committee?
I just wanted to make some statements where we're currently, what I've been doing up until now is working with folks at the town hall. I've been talking with Pamela McCarthy and Mark Tisdale, just trying to figure out where we were with respect to the grants, and we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
And learning also about how to keep on track with respect to the goal of this committee in our mission statement. I have a broad interest over many items with my background. I know Rachel is interested in solid waste, and solid waste is a very, very broad category that can be broken down into different types of different divisions. For instance, solid waste would include municipal solid waste. It could include, the organic waste that folks need to get rid of, and compost, recycling as well. In addition to that, solid waste that is taken at our picked up curbside and shipped off to Rochester, Massachusetts, where there is a waste to energy incinerator, formerly CMAS. But that's something that there's plenty of work to be done on that.
Yeah.
And maybe she could use a hand with that from me, maybe another member. I wanted to mention the fact that stormwater is a very, very important aspect of our mission, and something that I think someone else should step up and take, because that would be, I think it might have a lot to do with what is the most aesthetically pleasing possible interpretation of stormwater design that would benefit the community and be the best thing in the community. And then I could provide guidance to anyone who wants it on stormwater with respect to what the wishes of the engineering department would be, as far as that policy goes. Of course, and then there's air pollution, which is another important issue that someone can take on. Maybe me, maybe anyone else who's interested. Soil conservation is another one which falls under the responsibility of Conservation Commission with respect to projects within 100 feet of wetlands. But it is very important consideration to maintain soil and minimize erosion. As far as soil is concerned, soil is important for cultivation of our food resources and use of conservation land, which we may have some agricultural applications for in the near future, which we're hoping for. And then, of course, water conservation is another major important responsibility too.
So James, with really all your expertise, I guess it would be helpful if you look at the way the outline was sort of dividing things into different issues, and maybe pick 2 or 3 of those issues, or the broad issues or the broad and the narrow issues. And then, whatever, send me an email and say, I think I'm best with your expertise, I'm best focused on this, this, and this. I'd like to, and solid waste is a great one, again, to work with Rachel on. Like, I think you'd be a great team. And you're absolutely right that it's broad, but probably something else as well. Again, I would also say the resiliency with respect to the the engineering resiliency for floods and things of that nature. I would think that. But anyway, so you can think about that, and then perhaps send me an email. So Rachel, if I can move on to Rachel, if that's okay.
And hang on, Molly, 1 second.
Yes.
So Rachel has her hand raised, and I also have my hand raised. So just letting you know when hands are raised. So
Okay.
Rachel can go first, absolutely, because she's up next, but just flagging.
Okay.
If you want me to tell you that in a different way, if you can't see it, just let me know.
So that's fine. Now I can see the little icon. I wasn't noticing it. Now I see the icon with a little white circle. So hopefully I'll notice it more. And if not, let me know.
Okay.
Okay. So Rachel.
This is a good way of structuring it in what we have to do. The other way that we could structure this is also in the types of activities that we're most comfortable in doing, or feel comfortable or excited about doing. So I love to research. I love researching everything. I love having lots of topics to research. So I could get a lot of research done on a bunch of different topics, but then there's other ways of like figuring out implementation or communicating to different events that I'm not as good at, where I would probably prefer someone else to do. So like, this is a great way of organizing it where one person is responsible for the whole subject. But given that like some of these subjects are so large, it might make more sense to think of it as I'll handle researching these topics within this, or I can do all of the research for this section and someone else can go talk with the person at this committee and do that. So there are different ways of organizing and thinking about the ways to best organize this. So I'm not sure if I feel comfortable being like, I can do all of waste and do the best job there, but I know that I can find 10 different proposals on things to do with waste.
Okay. So, and it sounds like you're even opening yourself up to help out on research of something that's not in your category.
Exactly. No, and then again, it's not so much, so like vertical integration, this is the whole topic, waste from beginning to end, and also you can horizontally stack that. I want to do the research side on this, and I can find things for people to look at.
Okay. I love that. And I think, again, I think it's sort of like, part of the overall teamwork that whatever we can step in and do. And if it's research on something that's not what you signed up for, that, you might be available and be able to do that research.
Yeah.
So anything else, Rachel, before we?
I claimed some different things. Like I said, I was interested in waste. I'm also, one second, let me find the window. I've already written on the shared doc what I was interested in though. So.
All right. So I got to go find the shared doc. Okay. So I can find that doc. All right. And is that the best way for people just to go to your shared Google Doc and put their name?
Yeah, so I can put the link right now. Maybe I should email it.
I think that would be best if you email it.
Yeah, I can re-up the email for that.
Okay. All right, to the link. And so then I guess what we'll do is I mean, you can send me an email too, if you want to.
Yeah.
It's also okay to go onto the shared doc and put your names next to certain of those items. And then we'll be circling in on things. So that sounds great. I'm going to put myself up for, energy efficiency in buildings and the building codes, because I know that could be hard and tedious. But hopefully I can, have some resources to help me with. And there have been some discussions on my sustainability committee about the stretch code and what all that means and what's coming in anyways. And I know that some select board members are interested in that. So I would say anything to do with buildings, which is, I would say, including new buildings and including, how do we retrofit the old buildings and how do we have a plan to electrify buildings or make them as energy efficient as we go onward. I also love, of course, the nature-based solutions, and I'll put my name down next to a couple of those subtopics, including the pollinator gardens, which I would just like to say success. I finally saw the monarch butterfly like a couple days ago. It took me all summer. And I also am interested in the mini forests, where you take a small space of land. Anyways, it's a new thing that was invented several years ago by a Japanese, whether biologist or scientist. Cambridge has one. So I think, again, I could reach out to them and say, it's actually not terribly expensive, about how that's been working. But for some reason, it does a much more dramatically higher carbon sequestration with these sort of jammed together mini forests. So that's an issue I'm interested in, which could be of interest. But I definitely want to, and I'll dig into anything else that's out there that nobody else wants to do, but that we say, you know what, that's really a high impact thing. Somebody needs to do that. We'll get that figured out, and I would want to do that. Those are my thoughts. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I would say by and large nature-based, and I will go to the shared document, identify whatever specific areas under there.
Okay. All right. So we're making progress on that. Do I see a hand raised? Any other comments?
Yes, hands up.
Okay, now I'm not seeing where the hand is. That yours, Laura?
Yep, mine's up.
Now it says Laura and 3 people have raised hands. All right, let me go to Laura. If you can go ahead and speak now.
Yep, can you hear me? Oh,
yes, I can.
Camera's off. I was just going to comment in general about, starting with what James was saying, building on what Rachel was saying, and that is that these are big, lofty, outline pieces, and there's no way that, in the near term, we can tackle all of them. And so are we suggesting then that, or, maybe we should figure out a way of having the people that have signed up and expressed interest in different topics to then prioritize within that kind of main topic, what those subtopics are that we would maybe focus on initially. I'm just worried about losing focus and trying to boil the ocean. Whereas I think given the expertise and the passion of some of the people on this team, we could say, okay, these are the main things that we're going to focus on. Those can change. We could deprioritize depending on what we find out. But I think it would be good for us to start with a short list and go from there.
All right. Comments. I think, Aisha, did you have your hand up? Aisha?
Yes, I did. So actually, I was going to say what Laura, she beat me to it. I'm actually going to say, realistically, as a committee, we do have limited time frame to work, and we should just list maybe 4. and then put everything else on the dream list. We're not getting rid of it, but realistically, we should be able to show in the next 6 months, this is what we started with, this is where we are, this is where we're going. So we have a goal in the next 6 months. We're starting with 1, 2, 3, 4. This person is in charge, this person is supporting, this person is doing research. Break it down, like divide and conquer. But at least realistically, in 6 months' time, we'll be able to show the town to say, in this, we have done this. The what, the why, the where, the when, and the how. If we can do this, and then we'll be able to show them that we're actually getting things done. Versus just everyone going everywhere else.
And we could leave that up to the leader of the topic, because there may be some things that are interconnected, right? So within the nature solutions or between something else, like there may be things that if someone knows something about that, then they can connect those dots. And, you know, it's not like all of these topics are created equal, but I think it does require some thoughtful assessment of what are the quick wins, or what are the highest priority, or something along those lines, is just my suggestion.
Excellent. And just to add to that, again, you know, take a look at one of these plans and take a look at the roadmap that other people maybe have gotten. And Janet, I think you had your hand.
Well, I noticed that they have on the calendar, you have on your agenda about solid waste they're having a meeting on the 20th.
Yes.
So that would be something for us to definitely, if we're talking about prioritizing, we probably want to have something for that. And I agree with what Laura and sorry, it just says pretty face on here, so I know it's Aisha. But sorry, you do have a pretty face. But anyway, so sorry, a little humor. We need some humor in this meeting. But yeah, so anyway, but I know it's very serious business. I know that. But I always try to add a little humor. But anyway, I think what we need to do, and we have Stoughton Day, I forget the date of that, but if we have certain things coming up, we probably want to have a little bit of something. We don't need to have a major thing, like Laura said. We don't want, kind of like your expression about the ocean there, boil the ocean water. But we don't want to go all out. So I think when I said I wanted to do PR or whatever, I meant I like to work with someone like Rachel or whoever needs help. And I think we are a community, we're a group, we're not just individuals. So even though we have, like we also have said so far, a priority, we're all really interested in climate in general. So we really want to get Stoughton on board here.
Okay.
So I do. The other thing is I am interested, I didn't mention, I know I kind of, sometimes when I'm put on the spot, I'll be very quick. I am interested in nature and also history, because I've gone to things on the Council on Aging, and I don't even know if we have a community garden like Easton or other towns. I think that would be a terrific thing to have, you know, just to get in on that and show that we're interested in that part of the environment as well. And you know, how the birds and the animals and the plants and all the different parts that all the species get along somehow, because that's involved in climate as well.
Alrighty. Okay. Anybody else? So before we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is about anti-ivoling, any other comments about sort of, you know, picking and focusing on what individuals want to focus their efforts on? Rachel, is your hand up? Yes.
Yeah. I just realized, so what we're doing right now with all these sections, these are the sections that we're eventually going to put into the report. Yeah, the report that we're putting out as a, so,
Yes.
so like even the writing of that report, which is 2 years from now almost, that's not necessarily the thing that is the time sensitive thing at the moment. So this is something we should be keeping in mind, but also, yeah, I think we should move on, as Janet just said. So.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to comment. It's like another way to move forward and to organize and say, you know, here's our things, here's the narrow list, and here's how we step forward. Is really, and I'm going to do it again, is go back to Governor Baker's executive order that Kathy Stanley told us about. That lays out, whether it's like 8 pages or so, for the state government, we're going to do this and we're going to measure it. We're going to do this and here's how we measure it. And that's also like a really good thing with guideposts. So I'm going to take a look at that. Maybe some of you also want to take a look at that as well. And, basically she's like, that's where you start. That could be the model for the town action to a certain extent. And then, but this is, I would say this is, a process, hopefully with the plan being drafted, which is about the town operations and town government, but it's about the town. It's about, how we as a town and a community lower our greenhouse gas emissions and are individually and as a community prepared for extreme weather events. So I'm going to go back to do that and we'll continue this discussion. But I think the Google Docs and putting that information in there and thinking even if anybody wants to propose, these seem to be the 6 big things. I'm happy to see an email. We'll discuss it again, but it's good that people have sort of thought about their interests. All right, so I had next on the agenda, which was Rachel was looking at an anti-idling proposal, and she did send an email, and I'm going to let you take the floor, Rachel, and let us know, just sort of from the ground up, tell us about that and what you looked at and what you're thinking about anti-idling.
All right, so first things first, I was just looking over the list to see if there was anything that we could just get started on that might be more time sensitive than the report. And when I looked at the anti-idling thing, first of all, that's how I've been finding these documents, by hitting up keywords that are in the documents and looking for Stoughton and seeing if there is any connection to them, which is how I'm finding a lot. And one of the things that came up is that there is a law on the books that you are not supposed to idle your cars. You're not supposed to idle your cars for longer than 5 minutes. You can get a fine if you do it. And the Department of Environmental Protection has released an idling reduction toolkit through the Municipal Waste Reduction Grant Program. And so they've got a lot of tools, ways to reach out to people, sample pledge forms, sample letters to parents, sample news releases, various things, and they have artwork that can be produced. So it's a relatively easy step for us to kind of build connections. One thing I was thinking was we could reach out to all the school principals and ask them if they could send this email out to parents, and things. We could get signs to be posted. I was just picking up my kid today. Many of the cars were not idling, some were. So this is something that is affecting us. This is gas pollution. This is wasting fuel. It is more expensive if you are going to have the car on for longer than 10 seconds. It is more expensive to keep the car on than to turn it off and turn it back on. So this is something that it's like a win in every way. Basically, it makes the air cleaner. It protects our kids around the school things. It's cheaper. It saves gas and fuel. And you don't get in trouble and have to pay thousands of dollars. So like all of these things are great. So it just seems like a very easy policy to implement. We could talk to schools. We could check to see if there's a problem at the Stoughton Y. I don't think the library has that kind of issue. I think the Council on Aging, they are a good place because the Council of Aging and the Youth Commission share the same building, and there's also a community garden there. In general, the thing that we have right now is that there is a lot that has happened already in the town. There is a lot that has been suggested to happen, and we don't know either what has happened, what is out there, what has already fallen through. So I would like for us to think about checking with these commissions, thinking with the committees, with the different departments, what people have already done. Laura has her hand raised.
Laura.
Thank you. Rachel, you bring up a really interesting point thinking about schools. I like that you mentioned that specifically because yes, the parents all sit in a very long line, but also thinking about the school buses and the fact that they are probably idling and, not sure what state of gas emissions that they are, but just thinking about, I don't want to get into fines and things like that, but, making recommendations really more about fuel conservation or, thinking about, other ways of even framing this that highlight the issue of waste associated with idling that then also lead to the greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of that that's going on at drop off and pickup. So I appreciate that you brought it up in the context of schools, obviously not limited to that, but I think that's an interesting point.
I didn't bring up school buses only because I don't know what kind of training there is right now. I have not watched bus pickup the way I've watched parent pickup. But there is training specifically for bus drivers that I think they should have already gone through. That is included in the kit. So,
Yeah.
All right. So
Great.
can I move it on to Janet, see if she has any comments? Again, doing my circle here about the,
Michael and James have raised their hands.
okay, Michael, sorry.
Yeah, go to the hands first.
Yeah. Just a very quick comment. I think that, obviously this is something that we should be dealing with. I'm not at schools regularly or any place else where I see people idling, and just the thought of it is kind of nightmarish. But on the other hand, I just want to make sure that everything we do is within our mandate, which is to prepare a report and an interim report. I just want to make sure we don't overstep any bounds at any point along the way that's going to get us our hand slapped for making recommendations that are outside of the purview of what we were in fact assigned and charged by the town committee.
Yeah, I agree with that. At the same time, I do remember one of the select board members telling us that we should let them know if there's anything that we should do ahead of time, if there are recommendations that we find. So maybe it is we go to the Board of Selectmen. Maybe it is we go to the PTAs and ask the PTAs to see if they can talk to principals. Maybe we just mention this, but it's something that we can start doing things to a limited extent, not overstepping our boundaries, but there is some given our mandate for doing things ahead of time, I think.
All right, so James had his hand up too.
Yes, I have to agree with Michael. I'm thinking along the same lines of what our responsibility is, what our mission statement is. We all know that what Rachel's saying is absolutely correct. We don't like it. It's bad for the environment. But at this point, I think the best thing we have to focus on is making strong recommendations with respect to our final report. In the meantime, something can be done to generate publicity to speak of, but I think that's going to be a major project in itself that might take us away from our main mission. I do believe that that is the responsibility of the Board of Health to regulate emissions to speak of on a local level, possibly. Maybe that's someone to look at with respect to the responsibility of enforcing those rules to minimize poor air quality along those lines. I think that it can only probably be done with respect to a health regulation on the local level, and that's the best way to pursue that. But that's another project beyond the scope of our mission, our immediate mission, which is to make recommendations with respect to an interim plan and then a final comprehensive plan. I think that this should be indicated in the interim plan. The interim plan, we might want to decide when we're going to submit that. Are we going to just submit that within a year's time, perhaps between now and July 30th, 2025? Maybe we should focus on that and put that in our interim plan to the selectmen with respect to our major concerns, which we will expand upon in our final comprehensive plan with the help of any type of consultants or technical assistant grants that we may work with.
All right, so I'll just let Rachel respond to that, and then I'll draw other people in and make sure they can speak as well.
Very much like a form of debate. No, I get what you're saying, James, and I do understand. And I understand, like, we don't want to burn ourselves out by doing too much activism. But I do think that I could, as a private citizen, bring this up with someone at the Board of Health, or we as a committee could talk to the Board of Health and ask if they can think of ways to enforce this. There is a kit. And this is a suggestion, not like our actual going forth and enforcing something. There is like a kit for coordination for this kind of campaign that I don't know if the Board of Health knows about. Again, there's so many different pieces everywhere. It's kind of trying to fit them together. And all of this goes in, I'll talk about this later, but briefly, one of the main recommendations that I got from talking to Sudbury. So
Okay. Oh, thank you. All right. So let me, Laura, can I go skip over you, or do you need to have another comment before I go up to other people?
You can skip me.
I can't skip you. All right. So so Janet, I'm going to ask you if you had a comment about the anti-idling ticket, any action on that? Janet?
I agree with actually with both of them. But I think you can do something simultaneously. But like Rachel said, she can do it, you know, in a different way. But I think because I was thinking one of the things I saw from Gloucester is they did talk about what residents can do. There was one page which you can put out. But yes, we do need to come up with that plan, like James said, because that's why we're here. That's why they created a committee. Otherwise, we'd all be doing our own thing, and we'd all, you know, we wouldn't be thinking of Stoughton as a community, but we live here. So I think it's okay to do the things with the schools and with other places, but the big focus has to be how are we going to become as Stoughton become a green, or however you want to phrase this, climb, you know, be sustainable for
Okay.
our community. We want to work with our community as well as other communities. So we just have to think of those things as adjuncts, but they are just as important. They really are, but we really have to make Stoughton up with those other towns that we've been looking at, you know, just doing what they can to make it more healthy for the citizens and the, you know, all of us here living here. So
All right. So Janet, I'm going to go on to, we have
Sure.
less than an hour. We have like 6 different
that's
things.
fine.
I'm going to
We're
let
good.
Aisha, if you want to speak to the anti-idling, any thoughts before we move?
My only thought would be, let us consider the fact that when we were created as a committee, we do have specific goals, and that I will encourage us to stick to those goals, given the fact that we have enormous tasks in front of us. Everything else that we do see, we do hear, we do think about, we can make recommendations and pass it out to some other people to take care of.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. If everybody is okay, I'd like to move on. We'll bring it up again. We'll let people think about it. We'll make a decision at the next meeting. I think that makes sense. I'd like to move on to the community survey, because I think this is something that we hopefully really can get traction on and move forward with. And I want to thank Michael for doing this on top of what he is also doing. Hopefully everybody saw a copy of the survey, which was really nice and to the point. And I will let other people share their comments on it, and then I will close out of this. But I think the thought was to get this out the door. So I would definitely want to move on to this. And Laura, if you would like to start. Yeah.
Thank you. Yep, I'm off mute. Yeah, I thought it was very good. I thought it was concise. I thought it was the right number of questions. I thought it was the right balance. Admittedly, I haven't looked at it long enough to think about if there were any other questions, or, you know, I'm not going to get into wordsmithing or anything like that. I trust Michael to do that. But overall, I think it's a great start, and I agree with trying to get it out as quickly as possible.
All right, so we'll go around a circle about what's in the survey, and then we're going to go circle back to how we're going to promulgate it. So let me just go to Janet next. And you, any thoughts about the survey, Janet, just quickly?
I thought it was very thorough. I was very impressed by what you did, and I was impressed as far as getting it out. That is all kinds of ways to get it out, but whether it be I mean, you start, I guess, be at different events, whether it be with schools or with town things that we have going on, whether it be upcoming things. You know, you can even give out things at even supermarkets. I mean, you can almost do it almost anywhere. The library, different places where, you know, people congregate.
Let me just, so Michael's got his hand raised. Comment, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah, Janet, I am really looking forward to hearing from you on that. But just for the sake of note taking and for my own purposes and revising, let's make that. Can we make that a separate, the dissemination and the distribution, a separate category? And I definitely want to hear from you on that, because I can tell you've already thought about that. And I really do want, I am not wedded to anything on here. So if there's anything here you don't like or anything you think should be on here, please let me know. This was a rough draft. Just before we keep going around, I just so that everybody's aware. Anything you tell me tonight, I will incorporate. I'd also, I know that you got this on fairly short notice. If you can take a look at it, few times maybe before our next meeting. That'll still give us time to, for me to edit and produce a final draft before the Stoughton day. And then whatever else we want to do with it, we can do at that point as well.
Okay.
But please give it some time because this is just me. And I know there's gaps. There's got to be gaps. There's got to be things that aren't. And I would actually, even in regard to the wordsmithing, I'd really like everybody to take another look at it just for the sake of, is the language phrased correctly? Is the introduction really what we want, et cetera? So just make sure, just remember it's rough. So please bring it on.
Okay.
We will.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to go around in a circle. So Janet, we were just to talk about anything else that you want to add, and of course you can send
Well,
my.
like you said, I mean, I only looked at it once, but it seemed pretty thorough. I mean, I'll look at the wording because that was my major communications. But but the gist of it was, I like what it said.
Okay.
I didn't look as close at the words, so.
All right, so Aisha, do you have thoughts about the survey? Anything you would take away or add as far as a quick initial survey?
No, great work there, Michael. Thank you so much for putting it together. I truly appreciate it. I just can't wait to see that code so I can take my phone and just do boom and then start filling it up, because this is your one chance to contribute to the community. Everything, take that shot. So great job, Michael.
Okay, all right, so moving on to James, thoughts about the survey?
I think Michael did a great job to turn this around so fast. If we want to take another few weeks and look at it, that's fine with me too. But as it stands, I think it's excellent. It's to the point, and it touches on everything that we what we care about. I think that it'll get the attention of the folks that participate. We can get some very useful information from that alone on it as it stands. So I think it's just a great survey. We can look at it again if the board wishes to. But with questions, are we going to send it out Survey Monkey also, paperless way? Does anyone know how to do that?
We're going to circle around and get comments on the substance of the survey. Then we're going to talk about ideas to disseminate. So if you seem to be pleased with the survey generally, so let me move on to Rachel as far as the comments on the substance of the survey and anything you want to add or you would want to amend.
I think it is great, like completely great. I have two comments on kind of more wordsmithing. The first question that you have you noticed any changes in local weather patterns? You're priming there. So you're getting people to already be thinking about climate change. I'm not sure if we want that. Do we want that? Like, because you're kind of putting a little bit of a finger on the scale there. I'm just letting you know. I saw that. The other thing is we could ask a couple more of the questions on the scale from 1 to 5. Like we could ask, have you noticed any changes in local weather patterns from a scale of 1 to 5, have not noticed, 5, notice a lot.
Okay.
So we could add that, and that could just be a little bit more of a, we can put that response, if we can put the effectiveness of current climate change initiatives, we can also put that on a scale. We can actually show that data for the report. The other thing, do you think our town should invest in or otherwise promote? I think you could rewrite that question to be, what do you think the town's priorities should be? Or what do you want to see the town to do? Like just, and I wouldn't have gotten there had you not done the rough draft. And then for those A, B, C, D, E, you could put each of the sections from the climate outline plan. You could actually literally go like, just the header, energy, buildings and housing, transportation, mobility, infrastructure. Like you could see how people are interested in all of those things.
All right. I had a comment. Can I make a comment? I actually like the way he did the last question, because I think he just used sort of concrete, easy to grasp, I'm not on any committee type of thing. And I think that it was just much more user friendly.
Oh, I like the way he did it. I think he should do one for each of the categories that we have.
Oh,
What am I miss? I don't have my first page of the outline. What am I missing?
I mean, it's just like energy, buildings and housing, transportation, mobility. You have these things in there, but just separating it out so that we have 8. So just have 8 options and one of them for each of these sections, and write it in the exact way that you wrote it, because that's great. But that way we'll be able to see like, oh, everyone in our town is really focused on infrastructure and no one really seems to care about waste. That's interesting for us to know. It might be that we really have to talk about waste and a little bit less about anything, but that's still good information for us to have. And that's also something we can graph for the report.
So what I would maybe suggest, then I'll go get it to Laura, is maybe try it 2 ways for the next version and see how it looks. I also liked your introductory sentence about, do you think our town should invest or otherwise promote? So Laura, comments about this?
Similar comments. I do think, having them at least consistent with the categories, but I really like the way that Michael wrote them, because these are things that people can relate to. Like, these are actual examples of, we might want to add composting into the nature-based one, or the more information we can give about like what these solutions might look like, I think the better response we would get, because people would be like, oh, I get that, or I understand what that is, versus, I know energy efficient building standards are important, but does everyone in Stoughton know what an example of an energy efficient building standard is? So in fact, I would say let's give more real world or real life examples of these things, just because we want people to understand, what we're actually talking about. That's my only comment, but I love the question. It's like, that's the key question. So,
okay. All right. So it sounds like Michael might do another draft or 2 different alternate drafts, especially that last question. And I agree with Rachel about the 1 to 5, if you want to throw those on. So now let me just go around and maybe just people who want to raise their hand, who I'm willing to go with whatever, who has ideas about how to promulgate it, in addition to showing up at the Hazardous Waste Day and or Stoughton Day. Who has ideas about promulgating this? And it looks like Rachel was the first one with their hand up.
Yeah, so I think that I know how to do SurveyMonkey. I know how to do SurveyMonkey. I know how to run a poll. I know how to graph the results from 1 to 5. So, and writing them up. And I know how to send something on Facebook and such. And I think especially if we want to get things to students, we might be able to put things like a QR code, as Aisha mentioned. I am fairly certain I can get that from SurveyMonkey, or that can be generated, and we could put some up in flyers in the schools. We could put them in the library, in Council of Aging and Youth Commission, in the Stoughton Y, in supermarkets, and like the QR code, or like we could also do, I don't know how useful they are, but like people tear off a strip at the bottom as well with a link. Okay, maybe people will want to do that if they don't trust the QR codes. And getting not necessarily a perfect sample of Stoughton residents, but trying to get a large sample, and just wherever there is a community place, churches, different stores, restaurants, if they'll let us hang it up, like literally going door to door and hanging things up and seeing what it is. So that is how I would distribute it.
All right. I have a question, and I think we have to be realistic about the bandwidth of what we can do. But I know the town has done a lot of SurveyMonkey itself, and I could reach out to the select board, but I wonder if they would obviously put it on their website, maybe even up front on their webpage as opposed to buried. And also I've seen them put it in like the Penny Saver Suburban Shopper, like there's a whole,
Penny Saver for sure.
So I could talk with the town about how they could support that. But then I'm open to, but that's great. It sounds like Rachel can design the SurveyMonkey survey, but we would just need to promote it. I guess people can promote it on Facebook as much as they want as well, right? Everybody can do it who's a member of the committee to try to, because I mean, and it's great if people can go to a handful of places, but I don't think people have the bandwidth
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
to go to a lot of places. All right, I'm going to be quiet for a minute. And who else would like to speak about about getting the survey out there?
There's a bunch of hands raised.
Oh, everybody. So I'm going to go
Right.
with,
Right.
go with,
Oh, you can call on who you want.
all
Yeah.
right. So Aisha, your thoughts about getting the survey out?
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that we all want this survey to go out, but take for instance, like a lot of people shop. So one thing I know about data analytics and for you to have a fair, comprehensive survey is that you have to have a total quota of a certain amount versus the residents that are in this town. So let's take, for instance, a rough number. If we have 6,000 people in Stoughton, for that particular survey to be counted as a survey that is, good enough to use or to quote or to reference, you have to have a certain number of people take that survey. That's one thing I want us to know.
Okay.
Just quickly, we have about 30,000 people in Stoughton. Whether or not we can get a fair sample, but the last report that I saw we had like 20 responses. So.
All right. So Michael had his hand up. Michael.
Yeah, I would just suggest that this is not going to be a scientific survey. I don't think there's going to be any questions about our methodology or anything. I think it basically has two purposes. The first is everybody who sees it it's generating awareness about what we're up to. And the second is just to give us rough ideas. I don't see us publishing results, or I think it'd be worth it, as Rachel said, to tabulate them just to give us a sense. But I don't think any of us is going to, I don't think any of us should assume that there's going to be this is a representative sample. It's not going to balance any demographics or anything like that. We may just get a whole bunch of 70-year-olds. You never know what you're going to get with surveys like this. But any information we get is sort of, if there's a real preponderance of interest in one particular thing, or a real dearth, a real significant ignorance about another, well, at least we'll be able to make generalizations like those. So I would just wanted to suggest that I don't want to, if we get involved with scientific surveys, that's a whole nother animal. And
I just, let me just get to see if Janet has something before we go back to.
I don't mind. Like I could say it at my synagogue, but I don't mind going in front of whether it's a school or talking at any particular function that's going on, whether it's Stoughton Day or whether it's whatever coming up, and I can be with someone else if someone else wants to join me, and we can just talk about it, and then we can answer some questions if they have any, just general questions, obviously not scientific or anything specific. But I think it's nice if you meet people, whether it's in a supermarket or whether you talk in front of them, to make us real people as opposed to us just being a committee. There's something to be said for one-on-one, and or one on 30 or however many people are in front of you. I mean, I'm not afraid to talk to a big group, but I don't mind talking one-on-one or just talking to a few people, whether it's at Shaw's Market or whether it's I can be like the Girl Scouts, whatever. I can be, meeting with people, or I don't mind talking in front of an assembly at the high school or wherever you think it might be appropriate.
Okay.
But if people want to join me, I mean, it's more the merrier. I mean, to show that there are, a few people on this committee, and we can show that we're from different backgrounds, and, we live here, we're residents, and we understand them, and, hopefully they understand what we're coming from, that we really want to make this a wonderful community that's healthy for everybody.
All right. Thank you. So James, anything to add before we go back to Rachel and then Michael?
Yes, I'll be quick. I was thinking that it might be best. I agree with Michael. We don't want to have a complicated survey that people aren't going to want to fill out. I think this is a good way to scratch the surface and just get our name out there. But I think we should go our first survey paperless and get it out in the community, see what the response is, and then evaluate our success. And with any other subsequent surveys, come back later with maybe some more detail. But I don't think we should waste any more time. I think we should get this out there and see what type of response and what type of interest there is with respect to the mission of this committee. Support or criticism, any way you look at it. We need to get some feedback from the community. And I think if we go paperless, it would be good, because it would defeat the purpose of our committee to have flyers and paper and things like that we we distribute all over town that a lot of people are going to throw away and might even end up curbside or by the side of the road. I think we should be dynamic and go paperless our first round of surveys, see how it goes. And if that's successful, stay with wireless surveys. That's all.
Rachel, going back to you now. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, on that point, I think there is value in reaching populations that don't necessarily see online things. You'll get a different population entirely. It would be maybe interesting to see if there's a difference between surveys handed out in person at Stoughton Day or Stoughton Waste Day and online. I don't know if that would be significant or not, but you would get the different population, or a population that might not otherwise respond, as long as you keep it, if you hand out some things. And again, like this is actually generating things that are in the report. This is the community engagement that is part of the plan that we are going to be presenting. So it's not going to be scientifically rigorous, but it is going to be showing the community engagement that we have.
Yeah, you're going to have some paper, because there are elderly people who just don't get on the computer. I can attest to my parents who are in their 90s. So, but I think most of it can be in line, but you do have to have some paper just for those people, because I have people all the time telling me they don't know how to email, or they don't know how to whatever. And I wasn't born, I mean, I'm not like my daughter who's 20 or 30, you know, I'm in their 20s and 30s, but I know a little bit more than my parents who are in their 90s. So we just want it to be accessible, just because we want to touch upon everyone. And it is the elderly people who tend to be the ones that vote. If you ever go to a voting booth, it's the younger people that don't always show up. So we have to include them as well.
All right. Thank you, Janet. So, so Michael, and maybe just let me bring it back to Laura. So do you think that we should make, I mean, there's two thoughts here. One thought is that, you know, we're going to vote on the final survey next time. And does that make sense? So we're going to have the agenda. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. We're going to have maybe a couple different versions to choose from. We're going to just vote. This is our final survey. And at that time, could we also vote 100% behind the electronic, but also vote to do a small written hand portion too? Does that make sense? Laura, does that make sense to you?
Hang on, Michael wants to say something, and I want to hear what he says before I speak.
Actually, what I was going to say is kind of mirroring what Molly's asking right now. Just based on what Jim said and what Laura said, I definitely agree with Jim. One thing I don't like is seeing various brochures, et cetera, that different agencies and commissions and committees around town have created. And a year later, there's still 300 of them sitting in a stack in the library because somebody picked up 3 or 4 of them. 2 ways around that. The first is, I think we had talked about at Stoughton Day, actually trying to get people to fill out the survey at the table. If we do things at Council of Aging, et cetera, rather than just leaving a stack of them around, if we can target events, they're all doing something that night. Let's see if we can get 5 minutes there, et cetera. Because I really don't like generating a lot of paper, and that winds up sitting around town. So yeah, just that. But yes, in terms of your scheduling, I'm sorry, Laura's up on that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yes, I think by next week we can finalize the survey. And then I think in terms of the distribution, I agree with Michael, especially about being targeted in what we do. So I wouldn't say electronic versus paper necessarily, but I think targeted. And then we just have to be realistic about the cross section of the people that we're actually getting responses from. And, we have to be honest with ourselves about, we may be biased towards younger people that are going to Stoughton Day versus, and that's just the way it is when you do a survey in a town. But I think to maybe it was Rachel's point or Aisha's point, this gives us a start. This is a starting place for us to start asking questions, to start to get input, and it doesn't preclude us from doing future surveys. I think it's a place to start.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we have a plan to put it on the agenda next week. People can actually send me or Michael emails about any other wordsmithing or something to add or whatever. But Michael, I think is going to prepare maybe a couple different versions. We're just going to not spend a huge amount of time on it. We're going to vote on it, and then we're going to vote on the Survey Monkey proceeding, and definitely do that. But then maybe we'll also vote on maybe a small or written portion. Okay, Michael. Sorry, let you
Yeah.
finish.
So just to follow up on that, if anybody has any thoughts at all, criticism, thoughts, ideas, whatever, you can email me directly, and I'll incorporate them. I don't want to repeat this whole discussion next week either. So the more that I can incorporate in advance, the happier we're all going to be. So
Okay.
you're
I
up at midnight, a thought crosses your mind, go to your email, send it to me, and I'll look at it in the morning.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for all your thoughts and comments, and for the work you did, Michael. So moving on to the next issue, which is it blends very well to the next issue, which there is a Stoughton Hazardous Waste Day on the 23rd, a Saturday. I'm not available that day. There is a Stoughton Day, the event in, Halloran Park, then the 30th, which I can attend. I actually have a table and a banner for the Sustainability Committee. That is not who we are. However, it will sort of be a banner to say these people have something to do with something. Bring people over. Happy to talk with them, obviously, about both committees, and to hand out a survey. So if there's a second person who wants to sit with me at Stoughton Day, I'm more than happy to have at least 2 people there, and maybe we have 30 surveys to fill out. It might be all that people will stop and do. But we will promote who we are. All right. Hands up, comments, thoughts about.
Can you repeat the dates? Sorry.
Yeah. So the Hazardous Waste Day, and maybe James knows more detail. It's upstairs on my refrigerator. That is, I believe, Saturday the 23rd. Is that the right or Saturday? That's Saturday the 23rd.
Yes, that's correct. From 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock at the O'Donnell Middle School. There's a traffic pattern posted online, or if anyone would like that, please email me. And I think I emailed it to everyone anyway. If anyone wanted to volunteer, we could use anyone who's interested in volunteering, or if not, just to stop by with any type of hazardous material you would like to get rid of: tires, needles, electronics, universal waste. If nothing else, and you don't want to volunteer, if you don't want to hand out surveys, stop by and participate and get this material out of our municipal solid waste stream and see how it is run and how it's conducted. And people are usually very excited and happy to get rid of all this waste. So I'd invite you to stop by, see how it's run. It's a well-run event. It works out very well. So we hope we see you.
I can sit with you in the morning if you'd like. In the morning, 8 o'clock to whatever.
Sure.
That would be very nice, Janet, if you can go to that, and then you can report back to that on us. All right.
I'm up early. Yeah.
Rachel has a comment.
Just 1 second. So that would be before our next meeting on the 25th.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we did then we wouldn't have the finalized survey unless Michael sends out something that we all agree on.
So if it doesn't work out,
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, well,
If we
come
want,
anyway.
Stoughton Day is the 30th. So.
Stoughton Day's the 30th. Okay. Yeah. Well,
All right.
And I can help table that.
Okay, thank you. Great. And the next item is school engagement. We had just broadly talked about, and I think that Rachel and Laura were going to look into it. I mean, we need to engage the schools. There's all sorts of ideas, of course, of how to go about that. We know there's a recycling club at the high school. We also know there's an AP course in environmental science, which is probably a group of students there and a teacher there, Mr. Beaulieu, Beaulieu, who might be a good person to reach out to. And also the issue of, do we even want to invite somebody to be, quote, the student rep to attend some of our meetings, okay. Anyway, so let me turn it over to Laura. If you want to report first as to thoughts or, what steps might you consider taking, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Sure. Admittedly, I have not taken any steps, just given that school's now just in session. Didn't want to reach out to people and be like, hey, focus on this, when they're really just focusing on getting kids back in the classroom. But I would think that I think the best approach would be reaching out to the administration, asking who the, I just want to confirm who the teacher representative is for the recycling club. Confirm who the teacher is for the environmental health group. Ask them if it's okay if we reach out to them and then go through those teachers, engage them first. Obviously, we don't want to be going and trying to engage students directly. So I think that this has the opportunity to be a bit like a larger partnership. And I think going through the administration to speak to the teachers and building that relationship is probably the most long term relationship that we could establish. So I'm happy to do that. Rachel, you and I can talk offline about how to coordinate on that, and just get those conversations going.
I mean, I had similar thoughts, and also about the environmental science as well. One thing I was thinking was that maybe a student rep teens may or may not be interested in attending meetings. We could also ask if someone wants to do like kind of a internship or do something in exchange for a college recommendation letter at the very least, if we can't compensate in any other way. I know I can write one. Or someone who would go to town events, maybe do kinds of things like handing out surveys over the year, so that we don't have to waste all of our bandwidth. So, and I think that the environmental science class and the recycling club are great places to start. And then at elementary schools, if there's a project, we could talk to PTAs.
I did also think about the internship thing, and we may even want to think, I mean, we can even think broader than high school if we were looking for student support to help us with some of the work that we're actually doing.
Yes. And yes.
And I would just, for example, there, UMass Boston, I know they have a program in the environment and sustainability. Perhaps Bridgewater does too.
Yep, Stoughton.
Stonehill, that's super close by. So any ideas there? And if you reach out to the administration, if you could just copy me on the email, and you might say copy and just might mention my name in case I actually have any goodwill there from having been on school committee for 6 years, recognize my name. So that would be nice.
Yes, we would definitely do that.
That would be, so I'm excited about that. And I just think that's a really positive thing that we're going to be reaching out to not just the students, but their families and some parents who might want to be really active on this issue. So thank you for that. I'm just going to go around quickly. Janet, any comments or thoughts? And then I'll just circle everybody before we move on the school issue.
I think it's great to involve the students, because they also talk to their parents about things. Parents get involved in the projects, sometimes too much, but they do get involved. I know. I'm going to not talk from a teacher's perspective on that one, but okay. I think whether it's the elementary kids, they love to create things. I've done a lot with the younger kids as well as the older kids. So as far as getting credit to college, or as far as using that as something to put on your application when you go to college, it's a wonderful thing to have as a project that you did. But I think you need to start young, but definitely include the older kids, because they're on their way to becoming adults, and we're really trying to educate them as far as their community and how they're going to be in their lifetime. So it's a good idea.
Thank you.
What you just said.
Thanks. Aisha, any thoughts about the schools? Oh, you have kids in schools, right? So you have 2 children in the schools?
Yeah. If I can get that survey from Michael ready, I think we can put in a bit of a lot. I have one in the Stoughton High School team, and then I have another one in the soccer team, and that's a huge crowd. At least we can get 30 from both, or maybe 100, who knows? And I can also do, but if I can get that survey, Michael, I think I can pull some weight.
Okay. All right. That would be great if you could get people to, James, so I'll just go to you next about the school involvement issue. Any
Well,
comments?
I think we should wait a little bit longer until our committee is more, should I say, we are more on track with respect to our mission. I would recommend we look at this between the time we have our interim report and our final report, so that we have some clear-cut goals. And I think it'll be more of an enriching experience for any students that might want to attend. But, you know, an open door policy, you know, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with, but I think really we don't want to lose sight of the mission of this committee, and not have too many projects off to the side. They're just going to take longer for us to focus on our mission statement.
Rachel, thoughts, and then I'll finish it.
I
Michael,
think I've spoken enough. I
Okay.
think I have my perspective.
all right. My thought is respectfully disagree with James's thought. This is part of the community engagement, which is what part of the initial thing you're supposed to be doing as you're creating your plan and your roadmap. And I get what you say that we're not like completely where we're going to be 6 or 8 months from now, quite frankly, or where we might be if we get professional support. But that's part of the learning process, you know what I mean? Grassroots groups of people who get together and try to do meaningful things. They're kind of feeling their way around how to do it. Not to mention, we can always say, you know, we're at the inception, but we can point them to actual climate action plans, and they can sort of see the general area where we're going. So those are my thoughts, and I would love to get the schools in as soon as possible. Michael, any comments on the schools?
Yeah, just two in regard to you and James's comments. I'm not necessarily in favor of waiting, but I would really want a very specific and clearly delineated role for a student. If we were to make some sort of an offer for internships or something, I would absolutely not invite students, you know, say, hey, why don't you come to some of our meetings? You're a 15-year-old kid. You want to sit through a 2-hour meeting on a, no, you don't. So you got to come up with something fairly exciting, fairly dynamic, fairly cool, and fairly simple and not too taxing for a particular student or set of students who would want to be involved with that. But I wouldn't want to just say, hey, you want to get involved with this and then have the student just hanging there. So something very specific for
100%.
a specific type of student. The second thing is, if we do get involved with schools, this is just a wild prediction, but I would not be surprised to find some degree of resistance building. We see what happens in Stoughton schools sometimes with certain things over the last year that have prompted unexpected resistance. And we know how people are about how sensitive people are about a lot of these subjects. So just be prepared for any blowback, which is no reason not to do it. In fact, it might be more reason to do it.
All right. And Laura, you had a comment?
I just want to comment on that. And that's why I recommend that we go through the administration and the teachers, right? We need to lean on them and follow their lead, right? Anything we do, we need to be following, you know, what they think is best for the children, for the school. You know, we're not going to go in and, you know, try to do anything that, you know, isn't kosher with them. So I appreciate what you're saying, Michael, for sure.
And it seems like Aisha had a comment on that. Did you have another comment, Aisha?
Yeah, so again, I want to repeat this for clarity. I think some of us are kind of missing the point. We were talking about the fact that we wanted to put ourselves out there to get the exposure. And then part of what Molly was saying was we could get the schools involved and take it up from there as a launching pad. Now we're not taking off from the school. Every one of us know we have soccer teams, we have bands, we have stuff. Those are not directly under like the, you know, they have coaches, they have head people who are in charge of this stuff. My husband coach, I do volunteer work for the library. I can go into the library anytime in my volunteer work for the people that I do volunteer that I teach. And I can just put in there and I say, hey, you're here. Do you want to fill this up? Do you live in Stoughton? And I don't think that that's like a big deal. Like someone is going to say, hey, don't make people fill this form because, you know, it's just a questionnaire. And that's why I was asking Michael to say, hey, when can you get this out? If we go to the Stoughton soccer team game, everyone on that team, everybody coming in that soccer game, parents, students, everyone there all live in Stoughton. How do I know? Because it's the Stoughton soccer team.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Just
So
clarification. Yeah. Aisha, we're not just talking about the survey. We're talking about overall engagement. How do we have community engagement? So we were talking about the survey before, and we're going to come back with opportunities for, how we can get engagement on the survey. But now we're talking about how do we get engagement through the community, not on the survey, but on the climate action plan committee. So part of our remit is community engagement. And so we're talking about engaging the community. I don't know why I'm echoing so much.
That's Jim. He's got two. Okay, there you go.
all right.
Yeah, how we're engaging in general. So two different topics. Agree with you about the survey, but now thinking to get larger community engagement, one of the places we could do that is through the schools. Sorry, just trying to clarify.
All right. So can we move on? Somebody's got a feedback issue here. Can we move on to the next topic? And obviously we'll come back to school engagement next week, next meeting. The website is going to be super short. Trish is going to put information on the website. We're going to put the mission statement, list the members, and we're going to put on 3 sets of minutes. We'll try to regularly put the minutes on there. With my other committee, the sustainability committee, there's like kind of a bare bones town website. And then they had their own website on WordPress, which was free, but it was also sort of like, yeah, she's like, you're laughing, Rachel. Like it's sort of like a low level free type of a website, but at least was like a little bit more colorful. And so people might want to think in the long run about, we don't have any funds for it, about do we want or need or feel we need it. Let's see what the town website looks like. Let's see what bandwidth that Trish has to update it. We also might want to have a more colorful, interactive website or something. And so people are free to think of ideas. That's not something I do. But you could definitely see, you could make something that's more attractive. And again, we could promote it through all sorts of social media. So that's something we don't have time to really talk about today, but just to bear in mind, do we want to have an additional website that we control? I mean, it has to still look like a serious town committee website. So we would be careful about it, right? We'd be very careful. But it would also could have photographs, for example. It could have links to other towns' climate action plans. It could talk about, we're going to have a, community engagement meeting coming up in next month. So just thoughts about that, of how that could help promote us and be just a more attractive website, shall we say, and as a standalone website. So if people actually want to have ideas or proposals to have me put on the agenda at any time, let me know. I'm going to spend 3 minutes on, and I know that Rachel has something to say about, I've spent an enormous amount of time about grants. There's so much time I've spent, I can't even recount it now. I'm still working on it. Likely to get, or certainly the MAPC grant. MAPC says you also need an Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs grant. I need to work on that. That's going to require some matching sum of a small-ish nature on behalf of the town. So I'm going to talk with the select board about that. And I will still pursue that. And we will report next time with respect to more of that. And I just want to end up saying, I know James was a strong advocate. Some of the stuff we may not know until next spring. James was a strong advocate for going to the town and saying, we need X dollars. We need to hire a professional consultant. I'm fine with us still having that as a consideration that we may take to the town, whether it's through the select board or whether it's through whatever, we have to bring it to the account committee. But what I would suggest along those lines is to try to get a couple of quotes for a smaller figure and not $100,000 or up, so that we could go to, whether it's the select board and or the town meeting, and say, it would have to go through the procurement process anyways, right? We're not gonna handpick somebody, my understanding, but we would say, we've done our due diligence, we're trying to get grants, we won't know until X date, which is by May or something. but here's our backup plan. We think for $70,000, we can get pretty good help and X, Y, and Z. So James, if you want to, over the coming weeks, continue to look into that and maybe get a couple of different quotes, and we can talk about the scope of those quotes. That I definitely think that's our backup plan. Does that make sense to you, James?
Well, yeah, I was looking into that up until now.
Okay.
And I'll continue to do the same thing. I've been reading plans and talking with other officials about this, trying to determine funding as well. I didn't know the initial mission statement was at the time initial mission. Well, I'll speak with you to the side on that event, Molly.
Okay.
But the thing was, I thought that if we went before town meeting and asked for some money, the way I worded it was we could use some money for a matching grant or hire a consultant. I thought that would fly, but last Tuesday they told me the warrant was closed and it was too late. But that's I was thinking along those lines. We might want to think about something, formulate a article for the Springtown meeting.
Yes.
And you have the format that I'd already provided and emailed to every other member. We might want to decide how much money we want to ask it, but between now and then, I could try to get some more feedback with respect to cost. I'd already done that with Horsley and Witten and refined that based on the knowledge of folks that are on this community. They're specialists, mainly Kathy Stanley.
Yeah.
I thought that we could probably come up with something for $100,000 with $50,000 for a matching grant to nail down this plan, but that remains to be seen. But that includes a comprehensive plan and an interim plan.
All right. So James, you and I should talk offline because we're running out of time, and I know that I reached out to Acton, but Rachel I know reached out to another town. And maybe, and I know Janet reached out to Gloucester, and really the question was, how did they get funding? If Rachel could answer that briefly, then I'll ask Janet to answer that briefly, and I can answer for Acton.
So what Sudbury did is they had someone in their town who was working on his Master of Liberal Arts in Sustainability at Harvard. They do a capstone project. He offered to do it for free, and he worked on that capstone project. We might be able to find someone in a similar situation who will work on it for free for college experience, for graduate school experience, etc. The other thing is that they hired a sustainability coordinator before the plan was done, who was able to take the plan and start and like get off running. There is one thing that I think that kept coming up in the Sudbury plan. They did not do a greenhouse gas emissions like inventory before they wrote the plan, and now they're having to wait for it. And that is something that we should probably try to get funds from town from in the spring meeting. And we can also probably find some grants as well. And also like having a sustainability coordinator, having possibly a 501c4 or something of people in the town who are interested in doing that to raise money for these kinds of projects. Those are the things that were coming up.
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry, we sort of didn't have enough time to dig into that. So
Yeah.
Janet, just a quick response about funding the plan that Gloucester, what do they tell you about that? Janet, are you there? All right, we lost Janet. Should
Oh,
I-
you didn't lose me. Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute.
So
Yeah,
Gloucester,
no, I didn't actually reach a person, but I went through all their things, and I know they contacted two firms that where they actually got their plan written up, and they did have also, like Rachel said, a sustainability coordinator rather. But I'm going to call tomorrow morning and get the name of the person and find out exactly how they got the funding. But they went through a lot of grants. I saw when I went through all that stuff.
So it's
I'll get the specifics for you.
all right, and then here's the answer with Acton, who I do have exchanged phone calls back and forth. I will talk to their sustainability coordinator. We're hearing a theme here, aren't we? But Acton's introduction says they got a grant from the Community Compact Program. Now that's a new thing I haven't heard of. MAPC Technical Assistance Program. That's where we have a pending grant application. and the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs MVP Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, and that's the other office I'm talking to. So I'm already talking to 2 of these. I'll try to follow up on the 3rd, but I am going to talk hopefully at length with their sustainability coordinator, have more to report back on that. And so that's that issue. And I'm sorry we went very quick through it. The last thing I just wanted to mention is, if anybody wants to go, I'm going to try to go to the September 20th? Am I going to be out of town then? In any event, there's an information session. I don't know if it's September 20th or September 30th. Is that a typo on there? James, the new solid waste program there, I think it is September 30th is it supposed to be. At the town, they tried one solid waste program and people rose up against it, and now they're trying a second one. So one or more of us would be helpful to go just to find out what the select board's talking about solid waste. I'm going to try to go. Maybe as a public member, we could make a comment that, there might be a plan that's going to, in a short run, solve their financial problems, but is it solving the solid waste problem? James, any thoughts on that?
Yes, the 30th is a Saturday, so
It's not the 30th. It must be the 20th. Okay.
Yep, that's community outreach from the town manager's office and DPW to talk to the folks about the new bag and tag program and the new fees that are going to be imposed for electronics for the most part, and other types of solid waste. It's an information center, information session. So I just advise anyone who's interested, attend that. It may be heated conversation, but it's going to be an important hurdle the town is going to have to get behind it as far as this solid waste change in policy is concerned.
Right. And it's just so we're informed as a committee.
Anyone to attend that's interested.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that is everything on our agenda. And my vow is always to end the meeting by 9 o'clock. So it's almost 9 o'clock. I think we made a lot of progress, certainly on the survey. I'm very excited about a survey going out in the short run. I'm excited about people, focusing on what they want to concentrate their efforts on and maybe dividing it up a little bit. We'll continue to work on the Google Docs and maybe even take a stab at making it smaller. And again, I'm happy to talk with anybody offline about any other thoughts about how we really get our work going. But I think we're at the situation now. In the next few months, we're not going to have any professionals helping us unless we get a student who's getting their master's or PhD. We're going to be working on our own, trying to craft and move forward as best we can with hopes of next spring getting grant funding and or some other type of funding or support from the town whereby we bring in some professionals to sort of take it to the next level. But I think as far as the internal conversations with the committees, the commissions, the town officials, starting to engage the community, I think we can make as much progress as we can and then kind of educate ourselves on the issues that we're interested in so that, we can read other plans about those issues and we can hopefully be informed as we continue to engage. That being said, thank you to everybody. Thank you to the members of the public who watched. Thank you to SMAC. And hope everybody has the rest of their evening. And again, call me if you have any questions or comments or whatever, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Take care, and hopefully we'll get some sunshine. Thanks, everybody.
To adjourn?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, second, yeah.
I
All right.
All
right.
Okay. Let's do we doing a roll call? So Laura, James,
I wouldn't say that's necessary.
to adjourn. I'm trying to figure out with the remote with the roll call. You don't think we need to do that?
No, I think you can see who's here, probably.
Okay. All right. So anybody opposed to adjourning? All right. The ayes have it. I say aye to adjourning, and we will close the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
All right, see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
Night.